Okay, let's get started. Chris, if you would read the, or if you would do the roll, please.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, okay.
Mark Arnold.
Here.
Whitney Hall.
Here.
Marvin Kuzic.
Here.
David Mason.
Here.
Cole Reed.
Here.
Don Roberts.
Here.
James Shimanek. David Trojan.
Here.
Walker Henson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Chris. As we have a quorum, so I hereby call the meeting to order. This is the July meeting of the MAPC. The first item on the agenda is to look at the minutes for the June 15th, 2020 regular MAPC meeting. If you all had a chance to look at those, I'll consider a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries.
Clarification, was that David Trojan on second?
It was.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 3, administration. The first one of those is to hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance amending the Enid Municipal Code 2014, Title 11, entitled Zoning, Chapter 16, entitled Residential Carports and Accessory Buildings, Section 11-16-2, retitled Exemption, to exempt R6 Mobile Home Park District, R7 Residential Multifamily District, and lots over 1/2 acres in size. Section 11-16-3, retitled General Standards and Size for Accessory Buildings, to increase the maximum size allowed, providing for repealer, savings clause, severability, and codification.
Commissioners, my name is Scott Morris. I'm the Assistant City Manager. A little background on this. We have brought this before the Mayor and Commissioners before a couple of different variations of an update to our ordinance. And we were tasked to come up with a unified plan somewhere in the middle of each one. And so we have an ordinance that we would like to present to this body and as well in the study session tomorrow night in the council meeting. What other cities have done in the past around Oklahoma, a lot of them have a maximum allowable size of about 1,000 square feet, and a lot of them have maximum sizes determined by how many square feet your backyard has, things like that. We understand that if you're trying to build a building, there are complications with that. We want to try to simplify it as much as we can, and so we put together a package that I'd like to show you here, and hopefully it's simple and something that everybody can be pleased with. So on lots up to 1/4 size an acre, our current ordinance allows up to 650 square feet, and our proposal is to bump that up to 900 square feet. That would allow a lot of standard building sizes up to a 30 by 30 would be the maximum to get to your 900. So that would be for lots up to 1/4 of an acre. The next one would be 1/4 acre to 1/2 an acre. Our previous ordinance allows 720 square feet, and we would allow now 1,200 square feet in this ordinance, which would allow up to a standard size of a 30 by 40. From 1/2 acre up to a full acre, the ordinance is currently set at 800, and we would move it to 1,600 square feet. Again, for standard building sizes, that would allow 40 by 40 structure. And then our current ordinance has a restriction on lots over an acre, lots over 2 acres, and then lots over 5 acres, and we're just simplifying it and saying any lots over 1 acre in size won't be restricted by size. Now, they will still have to visit our code department, get permits, do the correct, if they want electrical, do all the correct things with our code department, and have to live by the setbacks required in our code department. But as far as size goes, there would be no restriction on anything over 1 acre. A few other changes. We're just saying we're exempting this from mobile home parks, residential, multifamilies. Most of those are over an acre anyway. And then non-conforming buildings can be repaired if they were built prior to November 1st, 2015. Accessory buildings can't be built on vacant lots. The problem with this is if you tear down the primary structure, now you have an illegal building there, and we're changing it to say that if the house gets torn down and you buy a property and it's got a shed on it, that you can use that shed without being in violation of the ordinance. And if you've got multiple buildings on one site, they cannot exceed the maximum. So if their maximum is 900 square feet and you've already got a 400 square foot building on there, you can't build anything larger than a 500 square foot building. And the maximum overhead door height should not exceed 15 feet. There is a height restriction on the building of 25 feet, so I don't think most people would build a door taller than 15 feet anyway. That's a fairly standard size, I believe. So those are the changes there. Just so you know, there have been, in the last 5 years, about 14 variances submitted where people want to have a different size building than's allowed. And under this ordinance, 8 of these people would not have to go before the board. They would have been able to build, and 6 would not be allowed to be built under the proposed ordinance. So those are some of the changes that we are proposing for the accessory building ordinance. Are there any questions?
Is this what was shown to us last time? Because I remember 1,800 feet.
There were 2 versions shown last time. There was one version that had, I believe, up to 900 square feet in up to a quarter of an acre, and then it would allow up to 1,800 square feet up to a half an acre, and then no restriction after that. Do I have that correct? Yep. And there was another version presented that was had 5 steps instead of 3, and they were much more conservative in nature than the 900 and the 1,800. So we're meeting in the middle here and giving a 3-step plan instead of a 2-step or a 5. And as far as the allowed maximum square foot, it's somewhere in the middle. That would not solve Mr. Mongold's problem that we are aware of, trying to build that 1,600 square foot house on the lot that's a 0.17 acres. Would not solve his problem, or this updated one. But it's a compromise, and even the proposal that we have now is probably much more lenient than just about any city in Oklahoma. You know, as I was saying before, there are a lot in Oklahoma City area that they restrict to 1,000 square feet in residential. They don't want anything bigger than that. And there is some concern, the larger the shed or storage building allowed, it could pose some possible stormwater issues for neighbors. So we're going to try to figure out at the time they come in for building permits how to mitigate those issues before they exist.
We could actually have an accessory building larger than the residence on the property.
I don't believe our current ordinance allows for that.
Does or does not? Does not.
It does not. I may have to go back and read that line. The current ordinance does not allow for it. I don't believe this one changes that, but I may have to look back into that.
What I would say to that, Commissioner, the quarter acre and smaller are the predominant size lots in Enid. When you think of a typical single-family residence, they're going to fall in that category. The ordinance that Scott is proposing for consideration would be 900 square feet would be the maximum. So most of the homes in Enid are larger than that, probably around 1,000, 1,200 square feet. So I think they would be smaller than most houses. Now, could there be a 900 or 850 square foot house? There may be, but the norm of what's probably been built in Enid over the last 30 years is somewhere in the 1,400, 1,600 square foot range. So the house would clearly be larger than a 30 by 30. And just because the ordinance allows that size, that doesn't mean people would build that big.
And the ordinance precludes the accessory building from being utilized for residential purposes?
Yes. It's accessory by definition.
And by still maintaining the setbacks, you're not going to put a 1,000 square foot
building in a little tiny backyard because you're just simply not going to be able to fit it back there. You're not going to have access to it. So that prevents, big shop buildings being put up behind little tiny houses in the middle of a neighborhood. It's not feasible. You can't do it, and you would never get a permit for any of that kind of sort of thing. Is what I'm understanding from you there, so.
Any further questions? Any other comments?
It doesn't seem to me like we met in the middle, like you said, because we took away the additional options and lowered the footage. So it seems like we actually decreased what the options were for folks, which I don't know was the intent of this when we started it.
Well, we're certainly open to feedback. If there are ideas that you would like to see, we're open to putting those in. There was one that had 5 options and all of them were smaller, and one that had 2 options that were much bigger. And so this is 3 options that are somewhere in the middle as far as, when I say options, I mean sizes of lots that we're setting the maximum square footage at. So this will not solve everyone's problem, but it will solve more than half of everyone's problem from needing to go to the variance board.
This needs to have changed quite a long time ago. I've heard several complaints, and this would have corrected a lot of those.
And I know for me personally, I have two residential lots. I have a half acre. One of my goals is to put a 2-car garage on one of the lots. This would allow me to have one tall enough for a motor home or a travel trailer. It also would allow me to build a building in a standard size. The sizes have always kind of made me scratch my head. They were weird, and nobody here came up with those numbers. That was done a long time ago. This allows for our residents to go get an engineered building that's been well-engineered, the plans are great, and it makes the city's job a lot easier to approve it, and they're a proven product generally. With the sizes now, you have to go out and almost find somebody to stick build you something, which is a lot of engineering, and hopefully it's done right. So hopefully this will solve, like you said, quite a few different problems, but one size doesn't fit all either, so.
It was a challenging task to try to come up with something. I think if we all did research and looked at other cities that have ordinances similar to this one is very lenient. It allows for much bigger buildings than a lot of other cities. It doesn't solve everyone's issue, but certainly a 30 by 40 from a half acre to an acre, that's a nice sized building, 1,200 square feet.
What the ordinance does is addresses the number of variants that have been granted. You can have an ordinance like everybody else in Oklahoma, but if you're gonna grant variances, specifically 13 out of 14, then it makes the ordinance. So while it may be different than what other communities are doing, it reflects more accurately what Enid is doing through its ordinance and Board of Adjustment process.
7 acres, and I wasn't allowed to do a 1,500 square foot.
Yeah.
I just fortunately had the 7 acres beside, and I was able to combine the two to not have to request a variance. But to be 7 acres is a lot of land to not be able to do a 30 by 50. So, and this would have corrected that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's gonna build a 7-acre building. People buy acreages because they want the room, or they have a pet bigger than a cat or dog. And so they need the appropriate facilities.
And you're not going to get a 30 by 50 in Country Club West or Seven Pines or any place like that. It's just not feasible.
I doubt that you get many 30 by 30s in residential.
I would ask a question in regard to covenants. If you have a neighborhood that has a covenant against doing large accessory buildings, I would assume those covenants would in fact be, this would be subordinate to those covenants, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing. We may want to ask if there's others in the audience that wish to speak to it. Nobody has signed up.
Is there anyone that would like to speak to this in the audience?
That would conclude the hearing. You considered the ordinance. There is an action item
Okay,
Can I ask David a question real quick?
go ahead.
Is your concern that as it's written, it's too restrictive or not restrictive enough? I misunderstood your comment, and I'm just curious.
I think it's too restrictive.
Okay.
I think there are some of these older homes where they're putting pool houses and stuff in the back. They're not putting a big metal building. And I think it's going to be too small, is what I think. I thought the 1,800 worked well. And that's where I thought we were headed. Apparently not.
Well, you will have an opportunity tomorrow night to make that change, and if
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
that's what the commission decides, we'll change the number.
And fine with you doing that.
I would ask for a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance for amending the Municipal Code 2014. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye, or nay.
I have one nay, or one against. Thank you, sir. Okay. Item 2 is to hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance to close a public right-of-way portion of a 25-foot right-of-way that runs along the east side of both 2801 West Chestnut Avenue and the adjoining lot directly to the south in the northeast quarter of Section 11, Township 22 North, Range 7 west of the Indian Meridian in Garfield County, Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
This is a public hearing to close a portion of street, platted street, location of West Chestnut, Coolidge, and France. Cleveland is right here. It's about about quarter mile from Cleveland. There is platted street easement right there, and the existing property owner wants to close that easement, so for the development of the property. This is a public hearing, and we sent letters to 300 feet around the property, and we have no comments from anybody, and also send it to utility companies, and we received none, no comments. It's presented for a public hearing if anybody signed up for talk.
Thank you.
There's no one signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So it is an action item, though, to approve or deny the ordinance.
Thank you, Chris.
And I see in your comments that the city retains the right to reopen that easement.
That's correct.
Other questions? Motions?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the closing the right-of-way, ordinance closing right-of-way of the section that we just talked about. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. Section 4 zoning, hold a public hearing, consider an ordinance rezoning property located in the 1500 block of South Garland Road, consisting, consisting of a tract of land approximately 3.49 acres from A, agricultural district, to C3, general commercial district. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide in front of you shows the site being considered for rezoning outlined in blue. I'll turn my back to you. Right north of this would be the World Harvest Church. In fact, they own all of this property. This would be, Evandale edition. I almost forgot what that was. This right here, these streets.
Okay.
Next slide. Now you see the church, the houses in Evandale. This one, we like to show you when we're doing rezoning, Mr. Henson, that we want to make sure we have adequate road, water, and sewer, and we have that here. In this particular case, the existing sewer is here, and you'll see in the lot split, they have a strategy to bring the sewer to the property. So in this case, we do have road, water, and sewer available to support the rezoning. I think that's my last slide. Are there any questions?
Chris, get me straightened out on where
Okay.
I'm at. What is
Let me
the-
back up here. Does this help? This is Garland Road. right
Oh,
here.
okay. I'm sorry, I
This is
couldn't get,
Evandale Route. Walmart would be right up here, and Lowe's would be right here.
got it.
This is the church. This is our trail right here. So, and we have the soccer park going on across the street. That help?
It does. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We do have somebody signed up to speak on this item, but before I leave the podium, are there any more staff questions?
Was this addressed in the comprehensive development plan, vision plan? What did it say it was supposed to be?
It is not consistent with it. If I can direct you to the background, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. This is defined in the comprehensive plan as traditional neighborhood residential. Thank you for the question. Anything else?
I think we're probably the step ahead of it, but right now it looks like that contains quite a bit of drainage, just from the aerial view. When they go to plat, would they have sufficient space to handle that on site?
What we'll do, and you'll see this in the lot split, but when this property is developed, they are required to do a site plan, and that is when we address the stormwater runoff. Their engineer will look at the site in its natural condition, farmland right now, and then when they build the building and the parking lots, that will create a higher rate of runoff than in its natural state, and our stormwater ordinance requires them to do on-site detention. And it will be, the water will be released at the same rate it currently is. And that's true on all of our developments. Good question.
Any other questions for Chris?
We have David McCune signed up to speak on this item.
Commission members, I reside at 5301 Evandale, which would be the second home off of Garland. You see there's one on the corner. It's been for sale for a year, hasn't sold. Take note of that. Right across Garland to the west is the large soccer complex that's being put in. We put up with fugitive dust for probably 2 years from the soccer complex being built and not said a word because we believe in Enid, we believe in Enid's children and wanted a place for them to play and thought that was fine. And now I have concerns about property values being severely restricted. I have concerns about light pollution. We've lived in our home for 25 years, more than 25, I think now. Concerns about noise. Concerns about drainage, as has been discussed. Appreciate that question. Additional traffic down Garland and skirting through Evandale has become an increasing problem. Off of Roop, people will jump off of Roop and go down either Willa Jane or I forget the other street up further east and come flying down Evandale pretty fast. There's a number of children, families that live there. So I have some questions. Is the property going to remain owned by the church, or is it intended to be developed and sold off? Is this particular plat of whatever, 3 acres or something, going to remain property of the church, or is that intended to be, as it was stated, a physician's office, I believe? I'll look out my front window, or my wife and I spend a lot of time at the kitchen sink or in our utility room. We have windows that face the north. When we purchased the property, it was an open field, open area, very decent, quiet place. And that's all changed slowly, gradually over 25 years. Walmart's been built, there's a collision shop been built on Garland. And I'm not against, don't misunderstand me, I'm not against investment in Enid and development, all of that. But I would ask each of you making decisions and recommendations to the city commission, city council, if this is what you want in your front yard. Would you vote yes for this to be built in your front yard? What I'll be looking at is the back of a physician's office, I'm understanding. The marker is in the ditch, just lines up with my front window out of our kitchen sink. So if the physician's office doesn't remain a physician's office, what next? If it's zoned commercial, it could be anything, correct? Am I wrong?
It could be any use allowed. That is a very broad group of uses, yes, sir.
So that's what I'm faced with. My neighbor next door hasn't been able to sell the home for a year. Point that out. So it could be a pot shop, could be, you name it. I doubt that World Harvest would want that next to their church either, but I can't speak for them, only for me. So what are the limits on C3 for commercial enterprises at this time?
Are you able to get Sterling hot fires? You can get that up there. It's a comprehensive list.
I would just urge you to consider these questions as you're reviewing the request. And I have nothing against the church, I have nothing against any people involved. I recall a few years ago, Pastor Brad came to the commission and requested a variance on the parking lot, and that was granted. Rather than hard surfacing the south side along the church, it's gravel.
As I said, it's a fairly comprehensive list. Mainly it's retail. It's our general retail zoning category.
Chris, what would have been the church before it was built and its zoning? Do you know, like, the history of it?
Yes, the property was zoned agriculture, and it's still zoned agriculture.
Because of a church?
Church is allowed in agriculture.
Okay.
I know we have a couple of maps that allow overlay. Do we happen to have the platting of the area around the church? And it looks like there's a home that's almost the mile over from the housing addition, like the view that we were looking at?
Can you go back to my presentation? Do you have anything else, sir? We don't mean to make you stand with why staff talks. So thank you for your comments. Let's see if I can capture what you're after, Commissioner. Does this show what you're after?
Yes, so on here, the site we're obviously looking at is a small piece on the west side and has a later lot split on the agenda.
Yeah.
Of the remaining area marked agriculture, do we happen to know how that's platted? Is that?
It's
a
not.
couple of
It's
large-
unplatted property.
So does it have multiple ownerships? Is that just the church and it looks like there's a residence on the east? Or
Right here? This is an oil well.
Okay, so how
This is
far
all
out?
owned by the church. We may have something here. The
Okay.
City of Enid, I would just have to check on that, because we put our trail in there and we built some detention.
So probably the trail and north of there, I'm guessing, is ours, would I be? Yeah. Yeah, it used to be all of World Harvest, and when we developed our trail, we purchased property from them and also addressed a drainage, regional drainage there. But the rest of that is all World Harvest. Yeah. We purchased this property here. Yeah, and then see, this is it doesn't show up very well here, but this is a drainage detention.
To follow up on Mr. Trojan's question, would it be safe to say that the remaining part of that labeled A also fits within the Enid's comprehensive plan, as did your proposed site, in that it would be more residentially?
The comprehensive plan says this area should be traditional neighborhood.
Okay.
So the request in front of us is not consistent with the plan. But it is the plan.
Right.
The city commission and the planning commission can make a recommendation separate from that. But when we studied all of Enid, it was the thinking at the time that this would be primarily residential, mixed uses and that, you know, different types of
Fits with the
residential.
trail.
Yeah.
So given that the church owns all that and Evandale is a through street, technically, if we begin the process of converting to commercial, it would be a very easy slide to make the rest of the frontage of Evandale also commercial.
I don't know that. That may be. Let me give you, I don't know if this is what's going to happen, but let's just zip ahead to the lot split. Bear with me here. Here we go. The reason we have this slide here, so you can see how they're going to get sanitary sewer to these lots. So here's the lots that are being split off later in the agenda. And here's the existing sanitary sewer. You remember I showed that to you? And this is a preliminary layout, and it's residential lots, but all they're showing is in that street, they're gonna bring a sewer here to serve these lots. I don't know that that's what they're going to do. That's just a preliminary layout.
I heard mention of floodplain earlier. Is there floodplain in those lots?
There will be when it develops, yes. That's a great question. So I'm not indicating that that's what they're going to do. I'm just showing you that's how they're getting the sewer there, and it looks like residential. There are people in the audience, though, that can speak to that. But before I step away, I want to address the drainage question. It's like Commissioner Hall's, if this is approved and they develop the doctor's office there, whatever stormwater runoff their development generates, it will be mitigated by stormwater detention. And we do that all the time.
Can it be done in 3 acres with that building?
Sure. Now, another question, and we don't see those at this level. We used to, site plans, but myself and Morale, we take care of that. So, okay, and it's in accordance with the ordinance. It isn't that they're satisfying Morale or me, we're just in charge of enforcing that ordinance. However, what you do see on a regular basis in front of this body is when plats come to you, you get to look at those and make recommendation of the Mayor and Board of Commissioners, who will ultimately decide whether it's approved or not. Our current stormwater ordinance requires at platting that the stormwater runoff for the entire residential development be designed and handled at plat time. So that strikes to your question. Yours was when commercial develops. That's when that's done. Are there any questions on that? There are representatives from the church here that could probably answer more detailed questions about ownership, what the future plans are, and that thing, type of questioning. Do you want to speak to that?
Anyone that wears a coat, it's 90 degrees out, Chris. Hey, we're just trying to make it a kind of a nice little addition for houses, and we think we're going to build like the house they can't sell. It'll probably get, values will come up, and when the soccer field comes in. But the reason we did the little site with the, we have a hospital that wanted to put a clinic in for the, you know, if someone got hurt across the road, that's the deal. And we have a VA wanted to put a major deal in also. So there's a couple different deals, but the rest we were going to build houses on. And as of now, the church was going to own it or do whatever they want. So,
Are you building the offices and then leasing them back to a tenant? Or will they purchase?
they can do either one. And if the church wants to own it, I guess they probably can. So we're just wanting a nice area for kids to go to play across the field, at the soccer field. So I guess Chris, take over.
Commissioners, are there any other questions?
I was going to ask, are they planning on doing a residential style building? I know that's kind of the current trend with in the medical community to make those look as residential as possible.
Edward Jones building is a little bigger.
Right.
Concrete stuff.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the lot split, or excuse me, the rezoning of the lot split from A agricultural to C3 general commercial. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
I have one objection to that. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 5 is lot splits. Consider a lot split for Brad Mendenhall, located at 1501 and 1525 South Garland Road. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We touched on this one a little bit. This is this same area where this would be rezoned to C3, and then they want to split it off from the balance of the church property and create 2 lots here that front on Garland Road. And when we do a lot split, we want to make sure that the lot fronts on a road, it has access to water, and in this case, water is in Garland Road. We also have to make sure it has access to sanitary sewer, and we have sanitary sewer on the property here. This slide shows how they're going to extend it to serve these 2 lots. And the last thing you want to look at, does the size of the lots conform to the zoning area requirements? C3 requires a minimum of 12,000 square feet. It meets that criteria. It meets all of our criteria. It's recommended for approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second to approve the lot split. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, item number 2 is to consider a lot split for the city of Enid, located at 1401 South 42nd Street. Chris?
Thank you. Give me just a minute here.
Sorry about that.
My secretarial skills are lacking. We are the applicant on this one, we being the city of Enid. Here is where the property is. We built a new wastewater treatment plant right here a few years ago. And when we did, we bought this whole quarter section. And there is an existing house right here. And on that, you can see here was the original lot for the house. And it had a house and a shop building. We have now included the shop building as a part of our operations of running the wastewater treatment plant. So we asked our surveyor to begin 20 feet south of it, because that's the minimum setback you have to have in agricultural zoning to have an accessory building. And then we simply asked him to go south until we had a minimum of 5 acres in addition to the road right-of-way. And 5 acres is the minimum size to carry agricultural zoning. So just like on the previous lot split, we want to make sure that the area meets the requirements of the zoning district. Agriculture requires 5 acres, we have that. The lot has to front on a public street, it does, 42nd Street. There is no public water or sewer, it's private, both water and sewer. It's recommended for approval.
Questions for Chris? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and second to approve. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 3 is to consider lot splits for Robert and Kelli Kappus located at 1323 South Oakwood Road. Chris?
Thank you. Here is what the Kappuses are asking you to consider this evening. This is the current track all the way to the railroad, up against the trail property and back to Oakwood. So that's the lot. And this is the lot, and the little bit bigger yellow is being split off. So this is a lot split. Have a large tract splitting this lot. And just like in the previous ones, we want to make sure. I see, is there a question there, Commissioner, Chairman?
Again, which one was Oakwood I was looking at?
Okay, I'm sorry. This is Oakwood Road.
Okay,
Here's our trail system,
got it.
and this would be apartment projects. Oakwood Mall would be kind of just up
Okay.
there a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. Anybody else before I keep going? Just like the 2 previous lot splits, all lot splits are required to meet 4 criteria. In this case, the property is zoned, bear with me. I think it's R. Did I not include that there? Rob, what did I tell you? R1? Thank you. So I apologize for that. Minimum lot size in R1 is ½ acre. It is way larger than that. So we passed that test question. The next question is, do we front on a public street? And the answer is yes, Oakwood. The next question is, do we have access to sanitary sewer? And we do. You can see it there along his north property line. He does not have access to water. You can see it terminates right here. So he's going to provide water to his new house via private well. So all of those elements are met. It's recommended for approval. The thing that may make this a little bit different than what you're usually seeing, the track is divided into 2 parts. And the easiest way for me to explain that is the blue part represents the floodplain. And the applicant has asked us to separate that from track A, where he's going to build his home, and that way the insurance company does not require him to carry flood insurance on his property. That is the sole reason for that. I do need you, if it is your desire to recommend approval, I need it to be conditional, because we were working with Mr. Kappus, and he just did not have enough time for his surveyor to do 2 things that we're requiring of him. Along Oakwood, his lot goes to the center of the right-of-way. So the statutory right-of-way on a county road, which is what this was once upon a time, was 33 feet. A part of our lot split approval requires an additional 27 feet of right-of-way. So at some point when we come through there and we improve Oakwood, we'll need that extra room. The applicant is aware of that, and he's willing to do it. His surveyor just could not get that done on the survey in time for tonight's meeting. So I said, let's go ahead and put it on, and we make it conditional, and then at some point next week, tomorrow, it'll come in, and if you approve it, then I'll be able to help him close on his real estate deal. The other thing that needs to be conditioned in there is right here. The minimum frontage to carry on the street, to carry R1 designation is 75 feet. It was unclear if we had 75 feet here in looking at the survey. So when the final survey is done, we've asked Mr. Kappus to make sure that there's 75 foot of frontage that will serve this back part. Does that make sense? And then there's one last concern. Because when you look at the survey, most people would say that looks like 2 lots, correct? That's a reasonable thing for somebody to say. But when you look at it in more detail, it's actually 1 lot with 2 parts. 1 in the floodplain, 1 out. But there was concern if somebody wanted to purchase this back here. I don't know why they would do it because it's all in the floodplain. I don't know what you would do there. But this part of his lot does not have access to Oakwood. What we want to do, and it's in my background, if in some point in the future they want to sell that, then they will have to add to this lot, this area, at least 75 foot, just like we were talked about here a minute ago. Then this back part would have access in front on a street. And Mr. Kappus is willing to do that as well. That is not his intent. It's just that somebody thought that might happen, and we'll take care of it. When in fact that does happen, that's what'll have to occur. Are there any questions? Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody.
Now, mentioning that this house might get sold some years after it's built, would there be any obligation to notify the potential new owner that they're basically in a floodplain, they just happen to split the tract?
They'll know that when they do their research, their due diligence. Same way that Mr. Kappus understood that part of his property that he wants is in there.
Seller would be required
Yeah.
to disclose that on a sale.
Does the applicant own the balance of that tract that proceeds to the east and to?
Right here, Commissioner? No. The original lot is this big. Did I go too fast? That's the lot that is there now. He's splitting this piece off from that.
He owns the balance of the tract? Or does
The
he?
applicant doesn't. The applicant's gonna own this. This property owner right here owns this.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks like we've got,
Making it, okay.
you see the same thing?
Yeah.
We're gonna strand,
Split off of the other one previously? Is that?
Commissioner?
looked like we had a stranded, very irregular shaped stranded tract is what it appeared, but apparently not. You're telling me they
Talk about this piece right here.
owns the balance of it?
This right here? Is that what you're speaking to?
Yes.
That's why we're requiring the 75-foot minimum there. So it's a legal lot. Yes, it's an odd-shaped lot, but practically all that you can build would be right here because it's in the floodplain.
So the combined A and B has been split off of that other triangular shape?
Okay.
Previously?
This gentleman owns the lot. Mr. Kappus here is buying this much land from him. That's what it is.
Previously split from the other?
No, it's not been split at all until right now.
Okay, and then that is gonna get split again?
Then inside Mr. Kappus's property, he wants one part to be defined in the floodplain.
We're talking about 2 splits, one A and B from the other, and then.
No, it's one split. It's one lot. He's got 2 tracts defined within it. And that's,
like platting.
you're not unusual in that because
Yeah.
we've had hours of conversation around this.
See it as Lot 1A and Lot 1B
I can
and
tell
then
by
Lot 2,
explaining
it.
if you want to do it that way.
So this is more like platting inside of a lot split?
Yeah, it's very similar to a plat with.
He's doing it to himself for, as far as we're concerned, it's one lot. He's doing it for the benefit of not having to
Oh, I
buy
get it.
flood insurance. In the event he should try to sell that or want to sell that, then he's going to have to connect it to Oakwood with a minimum of 75, and he understands that.
Everybody understand it well enough that we can vote on it?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
All right, I have a
second
motion
it.
to approve and a second to approve the lot split as we've discussed. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yeah, we do need to, I'm sorry,
Oh,
yeah, we do
conditional,
need to
I'm
put the
sorry.
conditions in there.
Yes,
Can I friendly amend the motion? I may be too late, but
No, go ahead.
I move to approve
What-
with the consideration. How do we do that?
Let me help you.
There you go.
Move to approve condition An additional 27 feet of right-of-way is provided. A minimum of 75 feet is provided on the south lot. And if in the future it is sold, the tract B will be required to connect to Randolph with a minimum of 75 feet.
So moved.
Okay. Withdraw your original.
Yeah, we already voted on it, but.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
Yeah. I gladly withdraw my original.
Okay, and restate it as Chris rewrote it
I'd
there.
like to so move as stated.
Okay,
I got
Except
it.
it was Oakwood, not Randolph.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
And I will still second it.
okay.
Got it.
Okay, we should all be the same. Now, everybody in favor of that, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's still unanimous. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I believe that's our last item. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.